The fear, for me, comes from not knowing where that person has come from, not knowing why they're doing this, and me or anyone being picked for death. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There is no, you look a certain way, you act a certain way. No, it can happen to anybody. That's the fear, isn't it? That's the fear of serial killers. You know, of, well, it could be anybody. Lock your doors, it could be anybody. And that's a fear often in horror movies. And that is the fear for me in the first Terrifier movie. Because that's what it is, folks. All of that, Art the Clown, he does it better than that. Of course he does. You know, let me say up front, and I've got some notes here, David Howard Thornton is still superb in this movie. But the movie ain't, I'm afraid. And I'm a real fan. I'm going to be talking about why I don't think it's what I wanted throughout this podcast. Steve Swift's Rambling Reviews, folks. Slightly changed. I'm not going to do as many of these, but I am going to show you my beautiful, fulsome face. The face of fame. Steve Swift with the tash that curls. It curls more on one side than this side. I don't know what it is since I've had the last cut. It's the last cut. The unkindest cut of all. The last cut is the deepest and all of that. Well, there will be some very deep cuts in this movie, actually. Now, the segue's brilliant. But this is curling a lot more than this one. I think I might have had a bit more heft in this one. And, yeah, that's probably why. That's probably why, folks. Right, let me get myself ready here to talk about Terrifier 3. And I went with my friend Alan. Hello, Alan. Hello. And I don't think we've been to the cinema for about what? I think it was pre-COVID. It might have been just after COVID, but I think it was pre-COVID. And we settled back into it like a duck to water, because we used to go several times a week, it seemed to me at one point. And we were in a cinema where there are big sumptuous chairs, and you could do this. And then back to this. Oh, blimey, I think I might have put my back out. Well, you could go down, your chair was like a recliner. I like that a lot. I like the recliner. Very nice. So, by the way, I had a bit of trouser moving there. Trouser rolling. I'm glad I didn't sandwich a testicular situation there. I wanted a testicular sandwich. That's the kind of thing that would happen in Terrifier 3, folks. There isn't that, but there is a scene in which a chainsaw is forced between the legs around the anal area of a young jock, shall we say. Young good-looking American boy. And his little twig and berries are on show quite a lot. Oh dear, really ruffled my hair there. Very nice. Look at that standing up. Oh, it's rapidly thinning, like my chances of reaching many viewers. But never mind. I like doing this anyway. So, the thing about Terrifier 1 was, which made a lot of money, and so there is no reason, and I cannot blame Damien Leone, I want to get the name right, who wrote and directed this and is the scion, I suppose, of this movie franchise. Can't blame him for thinking, I'll have another go. I loved Terrifier 1, but the whole movie, and this is partially the case in one of the scenes, Terrifier 2. The Terrifier 1, the movie, the scene which seems to be the first scene, I think it is, it might not be, but it always is in my mind as being the first scene, of him in the 7-Eleven, not the 7-Eleven, the cafe, the diner, with the two young women, if I can use that word, and I have, who are really taking the mickey out of someone who looks so extraordinary with the little top hat, of course, and the white face paint and the white Pierrot outfit and all of that. And the silence, the silent movie, 1930s silent movie, expressive work, and the humour within that, which you can't help but like, even when art is eviscerating people. And that's Mr. Thornton's supreme work. There hasn't been a performance like it for many, many a long year. But that scene where they are taking the mickey out of him, and where there is a sexual element to that, if I remember rightly, and where you know that something will happen to those two people because they have made the decision to interact with Art the Clown. And the scene seems to go on for about 20 minutes. It probably doesn't, but it does seem to. And it is supreme. It's like the first scene in Inglourious Basterds, which is a rotten film in general, in my view. It doesn't earn the right to be 3 hours long. But that first scene with Christoph Waltz, extraordinary. It's like that. And in the second movie as well, the scene in the joke shop, or the costume shop, that's extraordinary as well. There are some scenes like that here. It's set at Christmas time. Ho, 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 folks. At one point, you are bound to get him dressed as Jolly St. Nick with blood spatters most of the time. At one point, he's got the white face, and he's got the white wig, and he's got a pair of Christmas tree sunglasses on, and he looks for all the world like Jimmy Savile, a different kind of Terrifier, folks. But it's odd and horrible, and it's Christmas, and so they're messing with, it's Halloween last time, Christmas this time. They're messing with that kind of fabled time, and that sort of, I'm looking at my notes again to make sure I don't miss anything, that sort of deeply cultural American feel. And a lot of horror movies do that. They do. And Christmas is a time to do that. And there was a scene in a bar with Father Christmas and their friends, which is extraordinary and very similar to the two scenes I've mentioned. But it's never enough. And one of the reasons being is because Art the Clown is, the Terrifier himself, is crowded out of this movie. Why? Because as you get through the movies, the first one's okay with, we don't need to explain who he is. We don't need to explain where he came from. We don't really need to explain anything. It's just there. That's what I'm there for. I'm there for those scenes. I don't need an explanation. I don't need plot. That was sneaking in and quite well woven in for the second movie, but you do have the kind of stuff with Sienna and Jonathan, brother, and all of that, with the magic sword and all that kind of stuff, you know, at the end of it. Not really. It was okay in the second movie. It overbalances the movie here because something else is added, and more of that in a minute. But Sienna, who is struggling mentally and has been in some kind of emotional well-being facility, comes to live with her aunt and with her adoring niece, Gabby, and is struggling, is seeing things. She's seeing people who have died because of her, she feels, at the dinner table. It's a bit like Griffin Dunn's character in American Werewolf in London, you know, in the cinema. Hello, David, look at me. That sort of thing. So she's trying to move on. She can't. Jonathan, her brother, is trying desperately to move on. He can. He's gone to college. But she pulls him back in with devastating and deathly, spoiler alert, you might not have seen it, devastating and deadly results. But all that plot, and it is a separate plot, and the way it's filmed, it looks like quite a hokey kind of 80s horror movie, which I know is big at the moment. The 80s are back and all that neon and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I just kind of feel that that overbalances the whole thing. Of course, the denouement takes place in the house, the aunt's house, but it's not just Art. No, it's a character from the first movie that Leone wanted to bring back because he enjoyed working, and I need to get the name right, with Samantha Scafidi. It's Victoria Hayes, and she's found first in a mental facility or an emotional well-being facility of her own, far more locked down than the one that Sienna is is taken away from, or is released from. And she's not very well. And of course, she's got the one eye, and the makeup's gorgeous. Tom Savini's in this as well, by the way, talking about makeup. He's a bystander. I never even noticed him. But anyway, she's in it as well. So by the time we get to the denouement, she is controlling this. And Art is her lackey, really. That's not what I'm there for. I really like her work, and I really like the character, but I'm not there for that. And what I'm also not there for is an explanation of why they both might be there, why they might be behaving in this way. Jonathan wrote letters to his sister. She has a journal, and she kept all the letters. And when they meet, she talks about the letters you sent to me about I've been looking at demonology, and a demon can enter a serial killer, somebody who's evil, if you believe in good and evil, or they might just be constructs to keep you on the straight and narrow. Ever thought about that? You blow your mind. Hey, man. Now, that explanation of that's why they're there is exactly what I don't need. And the denouement gives me that. On the way, we have some really nice, well, it sounds awful, some really nice deaths. I mean, they are extraordinary, and Mr. Thornton is doing such fantastic work. But we have seen it before. And apparently we're going to have another movie. It's set up for that. More of that in a minute. Or maybe another couple of movies. I don't want to see that because I know what Art does. All I want is for Art to entertain me in that way. And he has a nitrous oxide canister at one point and really does go to work on Santa with that. He also finds a couple, the jock and his girlfriend, cavorting in the shower. That doesn't go well at all. At one point, he is, in the denouement, he is strangling somebody with their intestines, or somebody else's intestines. Yeah, and having to bite those intestines and the blood's flowing out. Thought, whose blood is that? Oh, it's somebody else's entirely. Yeah, the rats feature quite a lot here. I won't tell you too much about this, because actually a lot of people want to go just to have a look at those kind of situations. Chris Jericho's also in this, and one thing we do find out about Chris Jericho is that he can't actually act, because he's a medical orderly or a mental institution or emotional facility institution security guard who sees Victoria, and generally it's as if he said, Mr. Leone, is it okay to pull this face? Yes. Can I hold that for maybe 15 frames? See, that was only a few seconds, wasn't it? And it doesn't seem good, does it? There's a lot of that. He does get killed quite quickly. And this, hopefully, will kill any career that he's got in the cinema, because it weren't good. So eventually there are lots of deaths along the way. There's an extraordinary scene with Santa in a grotto, and it ends with carnage, as you might expect. There's a lot of chainsaw action in this, but it feels a bit laboured, because you've got all this plot, including Sienna's father, played by Jason Patric, I think. It doesn't look like Jason Patric, but I'm led to believe it's Jason. Might not be. I could be wrong. But there's that kind of wholesome thing going on. You've got the family stuff. There's a reasoning for why Art and Victoria might be there. She becomes a kind of demon with that kind of low and high voice and all that kind of stuff. You know, exorcist stuff, you know. And eventually, spoiler alert, we have a big pit in the middle of the house, and Gabby and Victoria are dragged to, I suppose, hell. And Art disappears and starts and catches a bus, and the post-credit sequence, or just pre-credit, end credit sequences, him having another go at killing somebody else. It's going to continue. But Sienna, who's wearing a crown of thorns, by the way, it's quite a lot of I am the way type stuff. At one point, Art does do the crucifix pose. There's all that going on. There's quite a lot of religious iconography, and there's quite a lot of Christian Christmas iconography and tearing that down, which is something that horror movies and other genres do. But if they're going to be dragged to hell, that's a bit Hellraiser. You know, talking about I Am the Way. And although Hellraiser might have so much to show us, or such things to show us, I don't believe that Terrifier 4 would. You know that Sienna has lost so much. She's lost, well, I won't tell you who it is, but she's lost an awful lot of belief, sanity, stability, and family stability in this film. And it finishes with her wearing a crown of thorns, by the way. Yeah, it's a bit on the nose. And, you know, the get thee behind me stuff is actually get thee to the pits of hell and I'll follow you down there. Think it might be. It's such a shame because art is why I am there. And although I like the character of Victoria, I don't need to see her dominating art. He becomes a subsidiary character. It's called Terrifier, isn't it? It's not called Victoria, or it's not called Demon. It's called, who are a great new wave of British heavy metal band, by the way. Oh yeah, The Unexpected Guest. Wonderful. And actually, she becomes an unexpected guest, and so does the plot. So much of it with the sword, and it does look very 80s. That kind of big pit at the end in the floor looks quite Poltergeist. And it's not one of my favourite movies, that. If that's what they're going to give us, then it becomes an ordinary horror franchise. And we've got a lot of those. I wanted to see something totally different. And with Terrifier 1, or just Terrifier, I did. Now, it's a horror movie genre franchise. And although that's something I know what to expect, that's the very reason why I don't want to see it. This was disappointing. Why? Because if you've got something that's making you money, you don't hide it in the corner, do you? You put it front and centre. That, sadly, is not what happened here. Ta-ta.